Trails is flight up.
So, Joe, do you believe in UFOs?
Oh, absolutely. I'm interested in anything I can find on the subject, like books, films, articles, anything I can get my hands on.
Well, we're in luck then, because our show today is entirely devoted to flying saucers, extraterrestrial beings, and the surrounding mysteries, from sightings to abductions, even the Roswell cover-up.
So let's roll tape.
The year, 1947. The place, Roswell, a small town in New Mexico that would soon blossom out of anonymity to become the focus of events of giant proportions. Tuesday, July 8th, 1947. Radios and newspapers blared the news of the century. The headlines read, "Roswell Air Base in New Mexico apprehends a flying saucer in a ranch close to town." Walter Haut was the public relations officer for the Army Air Force Base in Roswell, and he was the one to leak the initial information to the press.
The only thing we could say is the only information I have in this office is the fact that parts of a flying saucer were found up northwest of Roswell, brought into town. The material that was turned over to our base was flown on to 8th Air Force to General Ramey.
The alleged spacecraft parts, which had been found by Mark Brazel, a New Mexico rancher, were taken to and examined by General Ramsey at his headquarters in Fort Worth, Texas. The parts consisted of aluminum foil, rubber, paper, and sticks. General Ramsey identified them as remnants of radar targets and weather balloons.
He was commander of the 8th Air Force. He put out a press release stating that we were in error. It was just parts of a weather balloon.
So he denied the story and gave birth to what, years later, was labeled a conspiracy on the part of the government to cover up the Roswell incident. Dennis Balthaser believes in the cover-up conspiracy. He is the operations manager of the Ovnis Museum in Roswell. We asked him for his opinion of the incident.
My opinion is that there was an extraterrestrial craft crashed in the Roswell area 50 years ago, based primarily on the witnesses. The people that were involved did not get together and make this story up because they didn't know each other until the 1970s. We believe there's a story here that needs to be told not only to the American people, but to the world, because we think it's of such consequence. If in fact it was extraterrestrials, it's history changing. And the truth needs to come out about what actually happened here.
But if there were aliens, why would the government deny it?
There's probably 4, 5, 6 good reasons for the government to keep it covered up. One is panic. There would be individuals that would panic over news of alien existence. Religious beliefs. There are some religions that teach that we're the only thing in the universe. Maybe that's not true. Maybe we're not alone. I think the economy. Country is controlled by a few individuals with a lot of money. They're not going to give up that control very easily.
Balthaser has no doubts as to what really happened, and he isn't alone.
You know, it's kind of hard to accept when it has been handled by so many people out at the base that somebody wouldn't have known that it's a weather balloon. They couldn't have been that dumb.
So you think it was a UFO?
Yes.
The Roswell case was covered up for 30 years. At the end of the 70s, books were published denouncing the government as a liar. In the 80s and 90s, TV programs about the case proliferated. The accusations prompted the Air Force to publish reports trying to explain what happened. But the explanations didn't sound legitimate.
First of all, they came out in 1947 saying it was a weather balloon. And then nothing was said again until 1994 when they came out with an 800-page report that they lied about the weather balloon. It was a mogul balloon. So this was their latest excuse as of 1994. They had changed the story 3 times.
But can you think of a better way to cover something up?
Continuing the exploration of the UFO phenomenon, we now turn to a reported case of alien abduction. Some of the most frightening occurrences involving UFOs are the numerous accounts of human abduction by aliens. David Jacobs, an associate professor of history at Temple University in Philadelphia, is an advocate of this phenomenon. He wrote a book called The Threat, where he describes in detail what he believes to be the secret and nefarious plans of the extraterrestrials.
I feel, after researching this subject for 33 years, that the UFO phenomenon is the abduction phenomenon and vice versa, and it all points to ultimately a integration into the society, and that's what these beings tell abductees.
Dr. Jacobs fails to understand why the aliens want to integrate into our society, but is convinced that this process has been going on since the 1920s.
The abduction phenomenon we discovered many years ago was reproductively oriented. That is to say, people say that they have sperm taken, women say they have eggs taken, and from time to time they are presented with odd-looking babies. The abductees say that they look sort of like a combination between human and alien, and they say that they look like they're hybrids. But it is these hybrid babies, these hybrid beings that are being produced who will be integrating into the society at a future time.
Dr. Jacobs attempts to shed light on the abduction process.
More than 99% of the people who've been abducted do not know that they are involved with the abduction phenomenon. But they do know that a series of odd and bizarre things have happened to them. They have odd missing time sequences of 2 hours or so where they know that it takes them 12 minutes to get home from work every day, and then one day it takes 2 hours and 12 minutes, and they can't account for their time, and nobody else has seen them, and all they remember is they saw a bright light, and then they don't remember anything. They know that they've had unusual or unexpected, as they would say, out-of-body experiences, although they're odd. I mean, because they're just sitting there watching television, you know, drinking beer or something, and suddenly they have an out-of-body experience, which would not be the normal time for one. Or that they've seen people standing at the foot of their bed at night, and they think, well, this must be my grandfather who died years ago, has come back to say goodbye or something. In other words, the society provides a menu of explanations that they can fit these oddities into and try to make sense out of.
Jacobs, who has never been abducted, nor has he had any personal experience with aliens, admits that his research is solely based on outside reports.
All the evidence that I have for my own conclusions are based on the weakest form of evidence one can have. Having said that, hypnosis can be a very useful tool if used properly. Hypnosis can reveal all sorts of things that have happened in the abduction phenomenon if the hypnotist knows what he or she is doing.
Pat McGee met Dr. Jacobs in 1994. The first strange experience that she recalls occurred when she was 2 years old. Since then, she's lived through over 100 incidents, including several abductions. Scope participated in a hypnotic session where Dr. Jacobs tried to recapture one of Pat's nightmarish experiences.
I want to take you back to an incident that happened when you were living in Phoenix. It was 1991. You remember that you woke up one morning and that you sort of had an oddity in your eye. There was some blood there and all that. Do you remember that morning?
Pat related that she was abducted by aliens from a flying saucer and taken to a mothership where they performed strange experiments on her.
And I see this needle coming down at my eye. I could feel pressure, no pain.
Okay.
eye lifted out.
Well, where is your eye?
It's there, but they took it out. And they're putting something into my eye socket.
Pat also reminisced about another bizarre episode.
Similar to waking up with a hole in my eye. I've woke up with my face totally sunburnt, and I had no explanation of how a person can go to bed at night in a dark room, and you wake up in the morning and your face is burnt.
Despite the lack of any real evidence, Dr. Jacobs remains firm in his convictions.
Your legitimacy is not very high. Your credibility is called into question. Your judgment is called into question. You do not advance very far in your chosen field, and this is the price that I knew I would pay if I was to study the subject openly. I understood it. I made the decision that I was going to move forward with it anyway, and it is a small price to pay for me.
Stay tuned for the rest of our fascinating coverage on alien phenomena as NASA joins the debate and the controversy heats up to the boiling point. Continuing our report on UFOs and related incidents, we now refer to NASA, who joins the search for extraterrestrial life. Their researchers created a new science specifically designed for that purpose: astrobiology. The objective is to find answers for two giant mysteries: the beginning of the universe and the origin of life. Dr. Gerald Soffen is the director of the program.
You can't study the history of life unless you have biologists involved. So we have invented a new concept. It's called astrobiology. We need to take the astronomers and the biologists and put them together and try to ask the question, how should you go about to look for life on another planet? What is the marker? What's the signature of life? What kind of telescope do you need? What do you look for? What are the signs that there's life? It's not an easy question, very hard.
The origin of life is still an enigma. For Dr. Soffen, it started here on Earth, the result of perfect chemical conditions.
There are two things about life, very important. One is it can make another one of itself. Reproduce is the word we use. It can make another one, and that can make another one, and that can make another one. The second quality is evolution. It changes. Whatever happened to make life, as the Earth began to change, life has to adapt to the Earth, and it has to evolve. And the changes make life continue to exist. Otherwise, when the Earth changes, all life would die.
Astrobiology is a definite complement to NASA's mission, which for the last 40 years has been attempting to learn more about the universe. Dr. Carl Pilcher is the science director for solar system exploration at NASA. He contends that contrary to little green men or insect-like creatures, NASA's technology is concentrating on the search for microbes. According to him, the objective is to explore our solar system, with emphasis on Mars and a moon of Jupiter's called Europa.
We're looking for relatively primitive forms of life, probably microbes, things that you couldn't see with your naked eye, in places like Mars and perhaps in this ocean on Europa, if that ocean exists.
Mars is the planet most like ours. Europa, on the other hand, has been attracting attention due to its ice-covered surface, and may give us a clue as to the origin of life.
The environment on Europa, if there is a subsurface ocean, might be very much like the environment on Earth 4 billion years ago when life was forming on Earth. There might be hot vents where extremely hot water is coming up from the bottom of an ocean, and that's the kind of environment that we think the common ancestor of all life on Earth existed in almost 4 billion years ago on Earth.
And as to the possibility that our space probes may be regarded as UFOs by inhabitants of other planets?
Well, if a microbe can tell that a probe from Earth just landed, then I guess so. But we're looking for very primitive forms of life. We're looking for microfossils, for very small structures that would indicate that life once existed. We're looking for chemical evidence. If we do find evidence of life, it will be one of the greatest discoveries that humankind has ever made. And so these are our expectations.
Roswell. Much has been written and much has been discussed about the presence of extraterrestrials in New Mexico in 1947, until the Air Force intervened, and with good reason. Authentic or not, visitors from another planet have become an integral part of American culture. Coincidences, half-truths, and lots of innuendo. Those are the conclusions advocated by the U.S. Air Force regarding the Roswell incident, now labeled Case Solved. The man in charge of the investigations and the author of the Air Force report is Captain James McAndrew, intelligence officer of the U.S. Air Force in the Pentagon.
I like to describe Roswell as a fish story. It started out this big, and then it's got bigger and bigger and bigger. People had mixed so many different things into the story, it's into the myth. And they mixed so many different things, actual things that happened and some things that didn't happen. And people were telling half-truths and some people were telling the truth. And it was very difficult to sort it out.
For those people who still believe that what fell in Roswell over 50 years ago was indeed a flying saucer, the denials don't sound credible. Glenn Dennis is the president of the Roswell Museum. He relates that he knew an Army nurse who saw bodies being transported in bags by the military.
That came in and also that described to her that they had the large heads, you know, the large eyes, that they had never seen anything like this. There was nothing like that in anatomy or medical school that they'd ever seen before.
And what happened to her?
I don't know. They transferred her out the day after this happened, and she hasn't been seen or heard of since.
According to the U.S. government, the description of the aliens matches the shape and size of the test dummies used by the Air Force to test parachutes.
The particular project where people got the alien stories was using something called anthropomorphic dummies, crash test dummies. And they were testing parachutes that were going to be used in the space program. So this was during the 1950s. Take the descriptions that people gave of these so-called aliens in the desert that the Air Force came and picked up and took away. They're describing these dummies almost perfectly.
The fourth and most recent excuse by the Air Force was made 2 weeks before the 50th anniversary last year at the Pentagon in Washington, when the Air Force came out and said they have a fourth excuse for what happened at Roswell. This time it was a report called Case Closed.
Many of the things that people think they saw correlate perfectly with the Air Force Research Project.
In this report, 200 and some pages, they say now what happened in Roswell was a balloon dropping dummies. So 50 years after the event, they're finally admitting there were bodies, but they're referring to them as dummies. The problem with the dummy story is that they were not used by the military or the government until 1954. This happened in 1947. So there's a 7-year gap here in putting information together based on the government reports.
You're confident that you're not part of any cover-up, wittingly or unwittingly?
I'm totally confident.
In the report titled Case Solved, the Air Force explains that the notion of alien visitors only surfaced years after the sightings. It was an afterthought when people decided to interpret dummies as extraterrestrial beings.
Actually, what it is it's grounded in just enough fact to make a sensational story. But when you examine what these people say, they're totally wrong in their time frames, in the people who they said were there were not there, in the equipment they described was not there. And it's very clear that these people are taking stories from other periods of time and are melding them together to make a very sensational story.
Walter Haut is ambiguous about what really happened, but recognizes that unfounded exaggerations prevail.
Very frankly, I think that like any other story that is told and retold and different people retell it again, that little smidgen has grown and grown and grown. Everybody adds a little bit more to it, makes the story a little more interesting, and I think this is what has created the big furor both ways. Those who believe that there was a crash out there and those who say, no, it wasn't. It was a weather balloon.
Your license plate reads Mr. UFO.
Why not? That's an ego trip. You got to get something out of this.
Walter's not the only one to benefit from the Roswell controversy. Mayor Bill Owen regales in the fact that Roswell has an influx of tourism that has enriched its small economy by leaps and bounds.
What we've seen over the last several years is certainly a significant increase in the tourist traffic to Roswell because of that incident. The people that come to Roswell, on the positive side, they all come to Roswell. They generally are going to buy some gasoline here. They're going to possibly go to a restaurant to eat, even if it's only a fast food restaurant. But they're going to come to Roswell, and they're going to spend a little bit of money at the UFO Museum and a couple of other shops.
The Roswell Museum admits 200,000 visitors per year. It's one of the sole attractions of the town.
They have tours where people go out and see where this apparent event happened. There's really nothing to see out there, but it's the idea of going out there and seeing this piece of ground where something may or may not have actually taken place.
Up until now, no one has seriously challenged the reports by the government. But then why is the government so touchy about claims to the contrary?
I had an experience last summer where I dealt with the United States Air Force, or at least people that said they were United States Air Force agents. I was threatened on the telephone December 26th, 4 months ago. I have to live with that.
What was the nature of the threat?
I was told that if I keep messing with the Air Force OSI office, I'm barking up the wrong alley. I went after physical evidence last June in Oklahoma. I was intercepted by 2 individuals who said they were with the United States Air Force. I spent 3.5 hours with them. I was obviously onto something if they were really agents, and at this point I don't know. I'm still doing an investigation on that. But it's changed my life. And it's created an interest in me that's more than it was before because of my personal situation, I now want to know the truth.
So, Joe, what did you think of our show?
Well, I'm more convinced than ever that it's definitely possible that extraterrestrials exist, and some people think that they are present among us.
Present among us, huh? Wow, that would be amazing. And for more amazing and stimulating stories, please tune in on our next Scope.
You won't be disappointed. Goodbye for now.